let's say I'm able to hear something in the voice that they're not even consciously aware of, subconscious, 95% of the equation. Then when you release those limiting patterns, then suddenly you go to another quantum level, which is your true self, your true authentic self. That's the ultimate. And then that's where every key's heard.
Welcome to the Jane Layton Show. This podcast is for you, the person who keeps putting others first. Your self-talk has held you back. You no longer need to take a second seat. Let's explore ways to overcome self-doubt. You can silence that inner bully voice and achieve your full potential. Here's your host, Jane.
Welcome to the show, friend. My best friend Deepak is here with us today, and we are going to talk about our voice. Have you ever had those things when you're talking away to somebody and you're telling them all these great ideas and they just kind of nod their head, and then 3 days later they come back and go, look, I just heard today, and it's exactly what you told them. And you go, I told you that. Did you not hear me? And you go, why are people not tuning into it when I say it? Why is it always when somebody else says it, they get it? So Deepak's going to help us with why that happens, how it can be fixed, and how we can be heard again. And, it's if you ever if somebody walks in the room and they start talking and you know they're angry, or they're sad, or you're happy, all these things are in our voice. And we can change our voice by changing our emotions. And so these are going to be two great ideas that are going to come in and help us understand why sometimes we're not being heard and why sometimes we cringe when somebody walks in. Because we are senders and we are receivers of all messages. So before we get started, we're going to get a quick word from our sponsor. When we come back, Deepak, help me understand why sometimes people don't listen to me. We'll be right back. Hey, since I rarely have openings in my coaching schedule, I have a new resource out there on my website. It is called the BFF Coaching Network. And I have offered a spot there for any coach that has been on the show to list their coaching. You can go out there, you can listen to their episodes, you can feel a little bit about them, and then choose a coach that will work for you. So LauraJaneLayton.com, the BFF Coaching Network. All right, because this has happened to me before, especially with my husband, where you tell them something and 2 days later they come back and tell you, and you go, I just told you that. And were you not listening? But they heard it, but they didn't hear it. So how can I be heard?
That's a great question, Laura Jane. We're always speaking with each other. That's our main mode of communicating with each other, right? Our voice. And in my work, I found your voice is the most accurate reflection of your whole mind, but especially your subconscious mind, because most of our mind is the subconscious mind running the show. Every thought, feeling, emotion, and memory that we've had since the day we were born it comes through in our voice. And you might be thinking, Laura Jane, that, I'm speaking with my vocal cords, right? But do you realize you're speaking with every single cell of your being, all 60 trillion cells at the same time, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. So if there's any limiting patterns within yourself, which you don't know about, some things, maybe some upsets from the past or regrets, or maybe from your childhood especially, those will be reflected in your voice. And with your point of, your husband not hearing you, I found in this work that I'll talk about later is that your voice carries everything that you're feeling, but these limiting emotions literally squash or squelch a lot of the notes in your voice. Different emotions squash different notes in your voice.
Is that why sometimes when somebody's being really depressed and they, because I think we all have a certain emotion probably that is with us all the time. But then we have those moments of, high excitement or exhaustion. And those I know come through our voice. You get that person that's talking to you and it's so fast and it's so vibrant and it's just so engaging engaging because they're excited. And then you get that, I think I'm gonna have to go to dinner tonight, and that low energy that just pulls you down. And they're experiencing that low energy because it comes through. But the way you talk, it's like those old things, those things that happened when I was a kid, when I was told to be seen and not heard, and so I was quiet. And those are still coming through my voice, even though I don't think I'm experiencing it at the moment.
That's exactly right. Those are unconscious patterns. You see, we have a conscious mind, Laura Jane, and an unconscious mind. The conscious mind is about 1 to 5% of our mind. The grocery list, we got to accomplish this today. I got to do this. Sometimes we forget things on our grocery list, right? But then the subconscious mind runs the other 95%. By the way, it runs all our organs too. Thank God it doesn't forget to run some of our organs. Our conscious mind is not trying to run our organs because it would forget, right? So our subconscious mind has every thought, feeling, and emotion in every fraction of a second since the day we were born. So even though we're not thinking about what happened when you were a child, like you said, a classic example of being seen and not heard, those patterns still carry forward from childhood. From age 0 to 12, I found they just keep projecting onward and onward. That is until we can release those limiting patterns. And that's why it's carried into your voice. And those feelings and emotions, as I mentioned earlier, squash different notes in your voice. For example, anger squashes very specific notes in your voice. Sadness squashes very different notes in your voice. Fear or worry squashes different notes in your voice. Depression, like you're talking about, squashes different notes in your voice. So those notes are not heard in your voice. What if you have a couple of those different emotions I described? Then many of the notes are not heard. So guess what? You're not heard.
You mean if I had all of them, nobody would be able to hear me?
Right, exactly.
Oh,
Not saying
no.
not saying that you're going to have all those emotions at the same time. They may be in different layers. But if you're worried and anxious and also a little bit sad about something that happened a minute ago, then, a group of those notes won't be heard. But then you won't be heard and you won't be seen and acknowledged. Similar to the pattern you had when you were a kid, isn't it? So that's how that pattern repeats.
So next time I walk into the boardroom and I give off this great idea and everybody just kind of like keeps talking and they don't even pay attention, that's my voice?
Well, most of the people I work with are women, and the most common thing they say is, I'm not seen, heard, acknowledged, appreciated, valued, and understood. Very common. But if as a child we're told, you're to be seen and not heard, or you think if it's a female, I'm just a girl, I'm not important, because that's how the parent looked at the kid, then that's how they carry their energy forth. You see, they hold back on their energy. They hold back on what they're saying subconsciously. Remember, the 95% that's running the show is kind of holding back. Now, you might say, like a person might say, no, Deepak, I'm going to triumph over that pattern I had. That's the conscious mind. But the subconscious says, no, you don't deserve to, or you can't do it. That's our limiting belief from the past, not our conscious mind. So that's what wins every time. So when that wins, it squashes the notes in our voice, silences the notes in our voice is another way of saying it. And that's why we're not heard or seen. But that could be reversed too, though.
Hmm. So, I mean, if I reverse it, do I actually get rid of that? Not the experience, but the emotional response to the experience.
Yes, because we're going to the root of the emotional response that actually created the experience. It's the emotional response that's preventing you from being seen and heard that you're not even consciously aware of. That's being repeated over and over and over again. And once that keeps happening over and over again, then that piles up within your own experience. And then you become even more silenced. So yeah, once those limiting emotions are released, you will definitely be heard and seen. In fact, people will actually lean back like, whoa, they'll listen to you in a way they've never heard before. I have an example I can share with you about how women were not seen and heard in the beginning, but later on really heard.
Oh, sure, share it with me.
Okay.
Or
I
us.
I'll share it with all of your listeners. I think they'll be inspired. I worked with a woman executive who pretty much only worked with men. And she was a brilliant woman. absolutely ingenious ideas. So they were kind of coasting at a neutral rate, not going anywhere in the company. So she suggested an idea of how they could double their profits and bottom line. And it was brilliant. But they didn't listen to a word she said. She spoke for half an hour or so and explained the whole thing. And they were just kind of looked like they were listening, but they were not. And so they did their own idea. And then they actually not only didn't do well, they lost a lot of money and a ton of money. And then she came to me. She somehow found out about my work. I'll just briefly introduce it. And she shared with me, Deepak, I shared with these men executives this brilliant idea, and they actually lost money because they did their own thing. They didn't listen to a word I said when I spoke for like half an hour. And I listened to her voice, and I said, I think I understand why. I can barely hear you when you're speaking to me about what happened there. And the reason I couldn't hear you is because you had these patterns from your childhood that were literally preventing your voice to be heard. And I worked with her to do that, to reverse that. And I said, I want you to talk to those men executives again. Tell them you're a brilliant woman. You'll have some new ideas for them. You're so creative. She told him, okay, you guys didn't listen to me before, but now I have some new ideas for you. But when she spoke from the minute one, they were like leaning in like, yeah, tell me. They listened with every word she said, and she gave the idea. They go, that's a genius, that's a brilliant idea, an incredible idea. And then they followed what she said, and they made a tremendous amount of money. Then they told her, gosh, I wish you shared more ideas like that before. We wouldn't have lost money in that first deal. Then she kind of looked up at the ceiling for a moment, but smiled because she knew that her life had shifted now that she's being seen and heard. Yes, when you release those patterns, you will be seen and heard, and people lean in. They'll really listen to every word you say. You can turn this around, absolutely.
Well, if you can turn it around, does it take a lot of time? I think I'm just trying to imagine how last time maybe I didn't feel like I was being heard, which has been a while because, I don't talk to those people anymore. I talk to all of my audience. But, being out of the boardroom and being out of that, it sounds magical to one day have your feedback ignored completely. And then the next day, someone pays attention to it. Well, I'm going to guess it was weeks or months before the repeat. But, does it stay? Like when I finally change my voice, is it everywhere or is it only in certain situations? Because when I'm angry, it's everywhere for a moment, but it's not all the time. When I'm happy, it's everywhere for the moment, but, happiness levels go up and down. Or I'm excited. If I change that, we're just going to keep going with the seen and not be heard because that's what we've talked about. If I change that response, is it all the time now? Or does it come and go like all my other emotions?
Well, there's always layers to these emotions, right? Like if there was anger or frustration, for example, if that was to be released, like in a process I do, then below that there could be sadness.
Oh,
And then that could be the next thing that would be needed to be cleared. And then you would go to the next level, which is what I would do, and so on and so forth. Now it's different for everyone how they layer their emotions, but the subconscious always layers emotions. So just remember that. And the thing is, you may be happy in a certain moment, but still upset about someone who betrayed you in the past. Those are two separate incidents. Now, if
mm,
you see what I'm saying,
yeah.
so if your friend told you, I was betrayed by this woman who backstabbed me or did, whatever, you might hear that and go, oh my gosh, subconsciously, that reminds me of when that happened to me. It could have been 10 years ago, 15 years ago. You're not even thinking about it. Then suddenly you feel that trigger like, oh my gosh, I see what she's saying. God, I feel upset too. Because it's triggering your feelings of what you had when you also got that same situation. You see? You have a reference point, in other words.
Hmm. Okay, so it just I'm trying to think it unburies it. It you can open up. I know that there was one time when I mean, I know what was said, but I had no idea where the emotion just came just barreling out, like I let someone have it. And, you're like going, "Oh my gosh, Laura Jane, you are being crazy," because it wasn't my normal pattern. It was something hidden. And doing those days of self-reflection of, like, what triggered that? What was it, And you go, "Oh, I get it." And you come to that realization of you go, "Hmm, I get where it came from. I get why I reacted." As an adult, I now know that that is silly, not needed. I didn't need that anymore. So thank you for coming out and being gone. And those same types of words don't have that same response level anymore. Yeah, sure they can bring up something, but not at that volume of I yeah, I it was my poor husband has probably experienced the worst of me. But you have that huge let go. And when you figure out what it was, and I don't know if you have to always know what it was, but for me, it was acknowledging, going through the process, figuring it out. But it sounds like you have that shortcut of how to get to it without. But thank goodness it's in layers. Thank goodness it's one at a time, because if that was just one emotion, I can't imagine what I would be like if all of them were released at one time.
Exactly. And you can think of it like this, Laura Jane, is that from the time we were a kid, we accumulate different emotions and upsets, and they just pile on top. The subconscious just layers it, but in every fraction of a second. So there's a lot of stuff in our lifetime that would have accumulated in so many layers, you know. So, but we can be cleared also in the reverse way. I do it in a very much faster way, but you can clear it in a reverse way from where it came from originally. And you don't have to know every single thing, by the way. Your subconscious knows every single thing, even if you don't consciously know it. But that's ultimately the solution. So it's done, and your subconscious only releases in layers too, at a certain rate, which I'm able to tune into. So, but once you get to those layers, then the same person who triggered you before will not trigger you again. They may not be nicer, in how, if they weren't nice in how they talked to you before, you still won't get that trigger. What you talked about as a trigger when you had that explosion of emotion at that time, because there's a synaptic connection in your subconscious of where that similar pattern of something that happened to you before got triggered. And then that fired off from the past into the current moment. So in other words, we're thinking this guy or woman really upset me when she or he said that, right? It's this word. That's what it was. Yes, it's true. But if we actually see, well, what triggered that? I have found in my work that it always is a moment before that. And then if you go
Oh,
to that
wow.
previous moment, it's a moment before that. And if you follow it all the way back, it goes always back to your childhood from age 0 to 12, especially from age 0 to 7, I found.
Hmm. So, I'm trying to think why. Yeah, it doesn't matter. I don't need to figure it out today because I would rather listen to you. So, as we are experiencing ups and downs, I think we all know how to regulate right now. Like I'm experiencing this right now. I can regulate myself. I can get through the day. As we start to unbury, does that same ability we have now to regulate stay intact? Does it get stronger or is it less needed?
You definitely get stronger as you start being in tune. Awareness is the first step. Like if something made you fly off the handle, you, not just you, but anyone, any of your listeners, once you cool down and you see like, okay, what happened here? It, the subconscious responds faster than you blink your eye. Okay. So that's why you can't consciously often figure it out, because it goes back to, the previous event, and keeps all the way going back. So you may not fully figure it out. Here's an example. You're driving down the road and someone just is driving like crazy on the road in front of you and just suddenly cuts in front of you. And maybe a expletive may come out of your mouth, like, why you beep, 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 when they cut in front of you. And my God, you could have endangered everyone, me and everyone in the car, my whole family, you know? And then sometimes you might keep following them. I'll show you, what that feels like. Let me tailgate you. Well, that trigger that you got from that person cutting you off, it had to be that person, right? Yeah, it was that person. That was true. That was irresponsible. But what triggered you was not that person. It was an event before that had the similar emotional theme trigger to that person cutting in front of you. Someone may have betrayed you. Someone may have taken advantage of you. Something like that from the past that got triggered by that person cutting in front of you. That's why we got reactive to that. But once we get in touch with the emotions of that and release the emotional charge of that in that connection, in that experience, then even if that same person cut in front of you again, you'll go, God, what a jerk. You'd say that, but you won't have that, what a jerk. You'll be like, what a jerk. Okay, that guy has some problems in his life, but you know what? I'm just going to back off, let him get out of my way. I'm not going to let it affect the rest of my day. Totally different than I'm going to chase him down to his exit,
Yeah.
Once you clear the charge out of it, it becomes an experience, even if it's not pleasant, but it doesn't affect your life from that moment. You become stronger from it, actually.
Okay. So when something happens and it triggers me, it was a prior event that created the thing that exploded. All right. So I can have a light switch on the wall, and if it's not wired up to the right place, it's not going to do anything. So whoever made that connection between that light switch and the wiring is the prior event. But switching on the light switch is the current experience that said, oh, I'm connected to something. Where did it go? And it blew up.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. And also, I found there are 4 phases that we all go through. And it might kind of explain where these patterns originally came from to begin with. Would it be okay I share that with you?
Yes, sure.
Okay. The 4 phases we go through are this. When your parents decide to create you as a child, procreate you as a child, meaning whatever emotions, feelings, thoughts they had in the moment they're procreating you, maybe they had guilt, shame, regret, maybe they're not happy where they are in their life right now, maybe they weren't happy in the relationship. I'm talking about both the mom and the dad. Maybe the mom wasn't ready to have a kid at the time, and she wanted to do other things in her life. Those emotions get downloaded into this new being that's being procreated in that moment. You see, that being that's us has nothing in the hard drive. It's completely clean. But a certain percentage of the unresolved emotions of mom and dad get downloaded into the energy field of that new being created. But it doesn't only include them. It includes the grandparents on the mom's and dad's side. The mom's mom, mom's dad, dad's dad, dad's mom. If your grandparents didn't resolve issues in their life, and most of the time, believe me, they didn't. They had depression, anxiety, fears, phobias, emotional trauma, addictions. You don't think they affected you, but it doesn't matter. Even if they all died before you were born, a certain percentage of all of their unresolved emotions also get downloaded to you in your energy field. So you have unresolved issues of mom and dad and all the grandparents already in phase 1. Then you go to phase 2. What is phase 2? Phase 2, when you're in your mom's womb for 9 months incubating, but also incubating all the thoughts, feelings, emotions, regrets, guilt, shame, maybe frustrations with your dad, maybe fights with your dad, maybe feeling like, well, I wasn't ready for this kid. I didn't want to have this kid right now. Thus leading to the kid feeling, oh, I wasn't wanted. Maybe I should have never been born. Those kinds of things can happen. And so that's going into the child directly. That's phase 2. Then you have phase 3. Phase 3 is when you're born into the world. Now you have the direct interface of the parents, could potentially grandparents, teachers, people older than us, uncles, aunts, all those people influencing us in a big way, what they tell us. Oh, you're not as talented as I thought you'd be. Why can't you be like that girl across the street? Look how talented and smart she is. All those kinds of things affect the kid. Oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not lovable. Maybe the parents didn't know how to show love to the kid too, right? So that's all going into the field of the kid in that stage too. In stage 3, that is, with the parents and grandparents and all those people. So now you have phase 4. What is phase 4? Phase 4 is when you take phase 1, 2, and 3 into your own life, duplicating the imprints and patterns of your mom, your dad, and your grandparents into your own life, doing the same thing they did. And I would also add, even drawing the same kind of relationships as your mom and dad as well into your own life, unbeknownst to you. And friends, it doesn't have to be just relationships, into your own life too, same situations. And then later into your kids' lives. And guess what? Your kids do the same thing too. This pattern I found keeps repeating and repeating and repeating. That is until you can break through that, which is something I found you can do.
Okay. So I have all these patterns, some I created, some that were given to me, almost all of them unconscious too, unless somehow something gets triggered and all of a sudden it becomes conscious. But how it got there, I have no clue. And then they're creating responses in other people because, of course, my voice is being heard differently than how I hear it because mine are thoughts and not the vibration and the notes. So when somebody else hears me, it is received different than how it was sent. And I can change that?
Absolutely. You can. That is, if we release that emotional pattern that you may not even be fully aware of, which is subconscious, below our awareness, in other words, if we release that pattern, that limiting pattern of thought that came from your childhood, because I found all these patterns came from the time you were born till your age of 12, and especially from 0 to 7. Why? Because you're just a sponge. Whatever you're told, you're not good enough, you'll never amount to anything, you don't deserve to be loved, or whatever, you just take that as the gospel truth. And later on, you question it in your life, but guess what? From 0 to 12, that's the pattern you just project into the future. So yes, if you do release those limiting patterns, the emotional thought that you're not even aware of, you will definitely be seen and heard and acknowledged in a way you never were before. Absolutely.
Hmm. Okay. So how can I work on my voice? Are there examples? Are there books? Are there I don't know. How can I make sure that I am projecting what my body means to be projected and not missing all the notes?
Well, the issue is when we're talking within ourselves, we're not consciously aware of how we're projecting our energy. And in the sense that when I listen to someone's voice with what I do, I can hear their unconscious thoughts and, of course, what they're trying to tell me as well. Maybe some challenges and things that happen in their life. But they're not often aware of their unconscious thoughts, which are below their awareness of patterns from their past. Because when they're speaking with that also. Usually, let me give you an example. When you're speaking with people, let's say a woman is speaking with an audience or a group of women, but she just had a breakup with her boyfriend right before that she met with that group of people. And let's say she was even giving a presentation on relationships or something. So it's a very motivational talk. But let's say because that breakup happened with that boyfriend right before the presentation, she's harboring that emotion of that. So even though she's projecting a positive message to that audience, on the carrier wave, you're literally emailing your emotions to every audience member. Oh, why did he do that to me? We had such a good thing going. I thought it was going to last forever. And how could he do that to me? How could he cheat on me? How could he suddenly break up with me and go with that other woman, or whatever? I'm just giving an example, but I actually have cases like this. So that's because those unresolved emotions are being, and even though she said, you can have a wonderful relationship, she had a positive message, that's being, the unresolved emotions being literally emailed to every person. So they'll pick up her upset of that breakup in her voice in spite of the message she's actually delivering. Does that make sense?
Okay, so this is how I'm imagining it. I have this beautiful grand piano, and I am an amazing pianist, and I can play anything. But somebody went in and disconnected some of the notes. So I've got my piano, I've got my I know what I'm doing, and I'm playing this song, and people are like, I don't recognize that. What do you say that is? Oh, this is trying to think of I'm gonna do the popcorn song. Dun, 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 dun. But nobody's hearing all even though I'm playing the key, even though that I have all the pieces together, what's actually leaving the piano, what other people are picking up is not the music that's in front of me, that's intended. And so they're not recognizing what I'm playing because some of the strings are missing.
Laura Jane, that is a fantastic, excellent example. You know, you ask me, Deepak, play me my favorite song, which is not even my favorite song. And I play your favorite song to perfection. And you say, Deepak, stop playing that. It's irritating me. But Laura Jane, this is your favorite song. It's not even my favorite song. And I played it to perfection. Yeah, but it just somehow it doesn't sound right. I look at the piano, just like your example. Let's say it's a 400-year-old piano. A lot of the notes are stuck. Many of the notes are out of tune as well. So even though I'm playing it, I'm speaking to the person. It sounds kind of irritating because it's out of tune. Some of the notes are stuck. Remember, certain emotions squash different notes, exactly like what you said. So the song doesn't sound at all like the song you liked. So that's why it actually irritated you. Well, guess what? People hear us the same way as that great example you gave. With the notes missing, out of tune, you're saying that, communicating with them, that's true, but they're picking up the message like, "Ugh, this person actually is irritating me," even though you may be saying wonderful things to people. This used to happen to me all the time before I was able to clear it, and many of the people I work with.
So, how do I tune my piano and get strings put back in?
So essentially, it's basically, I call it resonating the notes that were stuck, the way I do it, to play again. So in other words, reverse engineering. Rather than figuring out all the complex emotions that led to you not being heard, the piano not being heard, like you said, let's get the keys to play that were stuck the whole time. Let's get them in tune. And for those notes that aren't even playing, let's get those keys to play. So whatever emotions, guilt, shame, regret, frustration, social anxiety, whatever it is, self-sabotage, whatever those emotions are squashing different notes on that keyboard, if we get the key to play, now we created a harmonized environment. It's called sympathetic resonance. And that emotion cannot coexist. That limiting emotion, negative emotion, cannot coexist in a harmonized environment. So it'll just literally fly off the key. And in our case, be released from our body. Because once we release that limiting emotion, then those notes are heard. And then guess what? We are heard and seen and acknowledged. Because if you're not heard, guess what? You're not seen, and then you're not acknowledged. But once you're heard, yes, you are seen and acknowledged, like that example I gave earlier.
It's making a lot of sense because even though I'm playing the music, depending on what piano I go to, I'm going to go to the perfectly tuned piano. It is going to sound exactly like the message I'm sending or that I'm playing. And I go to the one that hasn't been tuned or the one who has all the sharps taken out or all the flats taken out. It's going to resonate different. It's not going to give the message that's being played. So I need a tune up.
Well said. Can't say it better. That's exactly right.
All right. And then I guess the trick is how to find what's out of tune and how to get it back in tune. But I think
Exactly.
just knowing why maybe it's not happening, you know, is going to help me understand that maybe I need to go to a different piano to deliver this message because this one's all flats and people are feeling sad when I'm talking. So how do I create the music that's in my mind?
So the first step is to see what are the limiting emotions that I have that are causing me to be heard like the piano, or not being heard and react and receive the way I want to. Why are people feeling sad when I'm trying to talk to them in a happy way or a friendly way? Why are they rejecting me? So we have to kind of go inward, and it often takes a deep meditation to go inward, to become aware of what is happening within me. What are the triggers, the emotional triggers that are firing off? Am I feeling angry as I'm talking, even though I'm trying to say a positive message? Am I feeling upset? Am I feeling sad? Am I feeling guilt or regret? Like, oh, I could have said it better. Maybe I should have said that instead. That's also being projected, just like the keyboard you talked about, to the audience, to the person you're speaking with. So even though you have a different message, on the carrier wave are those emotions from the past. So you have to kind of tune in very deeply. Of course, not everyone can tune in that deeply to see what it is. Um, but that's why I kind of was looking my whole life to find a way to do that. And I found a way to do that. But once you're able to do that, you can release those limiting patterns, and then your voice is seen and heard. And wherever you go, even strangers who don't even know you will like say, "Oh, what was that you were saying? I overheard the conversation. It sounded fascinating what you were just saying." Everyone will be looking in your direction versus not you, and anyone will be looking in your direction, paying attention to every word you say.
So before I become a public speaker, I need to get fixed.
It will definitely only enhance. And even if someone is a great public speaker, there's ways to find out that yes, you're great, but I can take you to your, actually what I call it is your true authentic self. Most people don't know who their true authentic self is, meaning they're kind of get to a certain level. They may be very high level, successful level where they are as a speaker, as you gave an example. But let's say I'm able to hear something in the voice that they're not even consciously aware of, subconscious, 95% of the equation. Then when you release those limiting patterns, then suddenly you go to another quantum level, which is your true self, your true authentic self. That's the ultimate. And then that's where every key's heard, like you said, on that perfect piano.
Hmm. Okay. So what next?
So the first thing is let's find out what's going on in a person by listening to their voice. I have found that the voice is the most accurate, super accurate reflection of your subconscious mind. Your
Hmm.
thoughts, emotions, beliefs, perceptions, reactions, everything is in your voice. Even things you're not even consciously aware of, which is what's running the show. So because it is, that's where I would start with the voice. And
Do
from
you,
the voice, you go ahead.
do you mean that I can't hide? Like if I'm
Yes.
trying to pretend like everything in my life is perfect, of course, it mostly is. But of course, we all have our ups and downs. Of course, we have things that still hold us back. Does it fix more than just the way we're heard? How can it fix the way I choose to show up? Like, could I actually be more outgoing?
Yeah. 100% in all those areas you just mentioned. When you're, as you said, fixing the voice, you're actually releasing emotional patterns, which releases the full energy of your voice. Your voice is just what can be measured to see where those limiting patterns are. But it's actually a reflection of yourself. And if there's emotion squashing those notes, you're emotionally holding yourself back from your full potential of who you are, your authentic self, which I said earlier. So yeah, when you release those limiting patterns, you will have greater self-confidence, greater self-worth, greater self-esteem. Um, you'll project yourself in a way that's really being received very well. And I have found out, Laura Jane, that the law of attraction seems to follow in your direction, creating opportunities, situations, and circumstances that would have otherwise not happened if those limiting patterns were still there that were heard in your voice, in your energy field. Once those limiting patterns are released, yes, people, opportunities, situations, circumstances. Wow, I didn't expect this opportunity to come into my lap. Wow, look at this wonderful relation that just seemed to come out of nowhere. Things like that seem to happen on autopilot, even without affirmations.
All right. Well, I'm convinced that I have a naked voice and that people, I can't hide my insecurities, my frustration, and my anger from people that are listening. So I guess I better fix it. How do I do that? So why don't you tell us what you do? I'm sure all of this ties back to what you do.
Sure, absolutely. Well, this is what I do. I listen to people's voices using computer software and audio technology. I'm able to decode their subconscious mind, their limiting patterns and thoughts, the notes that are squashed on the piano you talked about, from these computerized voice maps. And then I'm able to send the client frequencies, and this is all done from the comfort of their home remotely, that will release those limiting patterns regardless of how long they've had it, even if it's their whole life. So it's a very eloquent, smooth process done virtually remotely. And in fact, there's an example I can give you of a woman who saw me who was 90 years old. Would you like to hear that?
Sure.
There's a woman who was around 90 years old who came to, at that time I was doing it in office, but now it's all remote. And she had been seeing a therapist for 65 years. And she called it talk therapy. And she was severely depressed. She didn't want to live another day. She was just unhappy with her life and her relationships, everything. So after 65 years of therapy, it didn't improve. So she somehow found out about my work, which is called advanced voice biofeedback, is what it's called. And so I listened to her voice and I was able to send her frequencies that would release those limiting patterns she had for all those years. But it took a fraction of the time, maybe a couple months, just doing one session a week. And then she felt like, wow, I feel great. You see, what happened at the retirement home that she lived in is everyone hated her. She had no friends. She had no hope she didn't want to live another day of her life. Everyone was mean to her. That was her reality, okay? When I released that depression she had for her whole life, when she went back to her residential apartment place, the retirement place, suddenly there were gifts at her door. And she was like, wine, cheese, bread. It's like, who put these there? Apparently, new people at the retirement home thought she's the main key person for introducing everyone there, even though she's public enemy number one there. And then suddenly she started drawing all these friends into her life that wanted to invite her to all these family reunions. And she's not even a family member. And then she started feeling hope and happiness for life. Even the person who used to carry stuff to her door didn't want to do that for her at all. It's like, do I have to carry stuff to your door now? Then he suddenly said, ma'am, can I help you? Where would you like me to put it? Is there anything else you need help with? Soon after we cleared these limiting patterns, her whole reality outside changed. So she came to me, Deepak, I have a problem. I said, what problem could you possibly have? Everything's going wonderful for you. You had no hope for life. You're excited about living life. You have all these friends you never had before. People are nice to you. What's the issue? Well, Deepak, I'm invited to so many of these parties that I can't go to them all, and I'm going to have to say no to half of them. I don't know how to say no. Well, I said to her, you didn't know how to say yes before. Now I'll teach you how to say no. No problem. Okay.
Mhm.
So that's a cute little story of this woman, but that's true for any of us. Okay. It doesn't matter how long we've had these patterns or how long you've struggled or how long you've gone through all these challenges, maybe drawing relationships which are not serving you over and over again. You can be free of that by releasing those limiting emotional patterns that you had, which I talked about came from your childhood. And then suddenly everything in your life starts shifting, and even the law of attraction too.
Hmm. Okay. So I think you gave us the website.
Yes, I
And
can. Shall I
okay,
give that again to you?
sure.
Okay. So my website is fastanxietyhelp.com. fastanxietyhelp.com. If you go to the website, go and click on the testimonials so you can see yourself how people have benefited. Maybe you'll connect to some of them. And then go ahead and sign up for a complimentary 15-minute consult with me. No obligations. We'll talk. You share what's going on in your life, any challenges, upsets, what's going on. And I will share with you a plan which is customized for each person I talk to of how we can clear that pattern in your life and lead you to a pattern of where you want to go.
Okay. So if I could do one thing right now, like don't have time to go to your website, I just right now, what can I do to help myself be heard?
Absolutely. Well, let's say we're upset about something, right? We're angry about something, or, because remember, when we're upset about something and we're not being heard, it could be sadness or anger or any kind of other emotion. I'll share with your listeners a little gift. I'd be happy to give a gift to them of of these two techniques I'll share with you that will help them, at least in the current time. And then if they want to talk to me later on, for 15 minutes, no obligation, then I can even go deeper. But one thing they can do is allow themselves to go into that state where they felt that real stressful emotion or feeling, okay? And then rate it from a scale of 1 to 10. Like, is it a mild one or is it a very intense one? Well, most likely, if it's something upsetting you, it's probably going to be pretty intense, probably closer to a 10 or so. So what they can do is this. Let's say somebody betrayed you and you're really upset about that. So let's say on a scale of 1 to 10, it was like a 8 or 9 or even a 10. So what you can do is tap in the beginning part with both hands, tap in the beginning part of your eyebrow near your nose a few times, okay? Then tap under your eye, right under the bone, under a few times, okay? Then after you do that a couple times, then you have your fist like this. Go ahead and go about 4 inches below your armpit on both sides with both arms, and just tap under this part of your arm, that is your armpit. Go about 4 inches below that and tap with your fist below there a couple times, okay? Then, lastly, tap under your collarbone. We have these bones here, the collarbone, so just tap under that a few times also. While you're thinking, the key thing is while you're thinking about that person who really upset you or said something to you that was very mean or didn't listen to a word you're saying. So if you follow those steps, then you'll notice that 10 or 9 that was really upset about what said to me will drop down in number. Let's say drop down to a 7 or 6. Repeat that process I just described and keep doing it, and you'll find it'll eventually drop to a lower number, like a 1 or so. That is a really powerful technique. But after you complete those steps I said, take a deep breath in and then exhale slowly. Okay? So again, I'll just repeat it real quick. You tap on the beginning part, feel the upset of the emotion, get it to its peak level, like a 9 or 10, tap on the beginning part of your eyebrow, under the eye, under the arm, under the collarbone. Take a deep breath in, breathe out, slowly, and then check that number. Then repeat that. This is a very, very, very effective technique. It's called thought field therapy. It was developed by a person by the name of Dr. Roger Callahan, who I had the fortunate aspect of working with him in my early days of this work. And this will definitely help your listeners. For sure.
Sounds great. I love tapping. It definitely, if nothing else, it brings me to the present, where I get out of my brain. And I know there's a lot more to it, but it definitely helps. So thank you for reminding me of that technique, because I used to do it at work sometimes. Don't have as many reasons to do it now that everything is my choice.
And there's a second technique as a bonus for your listeners, and it's called box breathing, if they'd like to do that too. It's a little easier. It may be a little easier for them, but what they do is if you feel upset about something that happened, just sit comfortably for a little bit, drop your shoulders, slow your breath down, breathe slowly, and then you're going to follow this count pattern that I'll just discuss with you. What you do is you inhale for a count of 4. Breathe in, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it now for 1, 2, 3, 4. Now exhale for 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it now. 1, 2, 3, 4. Do this for 2 to 4 times as needed. And then you'll notice that upset that you had in that moment will decrease very soon. This is another technique that your listeners can also follow.
And one
And
of the nice things about doing the box breath is you can do it in the middle of the boardroom. You can do it in the grocery store line,
Correct.
wherever you're at, and you're not tapping. Now, tapping's great. I'm not saying, but it's something that nobody else has to know you're doing. And that's a part of your self-regulation that we all are learning to do is when I hit these emotions, I need to be able to regulate anywhere. So when you're where you can tap, and if not, box breathe.
Exactly. So, and there's a link that I have for your listeners in the show notes that they can just click that and they can download the sheet, which summarizes everything I said. So it's easier for them to go through it.
Sounds great. Thank you so much. And it's definitely one of those tools that it's important to remember. Just breathing. I know we breathe constantly, but it's that conscious breath that brings you back into yourself. So I love it. Thank you so much, Deepak, for your wisdom today. I really appreciate it. Friend Deepak and I are not medical or mental licensed professionals. We are here for entertainment. People have found something that works for us, and we're so excited to share it with you to help you along your path. So thank you for listening and share the episode with a friend and help them get self regulated too. Have a great day.
Are you tired of waking up exhausted? You are not alone. If you're looking to take your life back, let's start with the simple step of adjusting your self-talk. Stay tuned for the next episode with your host, Lara Jane. Remember to follow the show so you don't miss the next simple step that you can use to feel more confident. And please leave an honest review.